morning, Chuck. Yeah, we're going to pray for it if we need it. Always. Yeah. Morning, everybody. How about coming in and let's settle down and get started. We're going to be on a short time this morning, and they had appropriations in here before we got here, so if you would, come on in. Okay. Thank y'all. We're going to ask Chairman Jaspers to say a prayer for us. Let's see if we can get it.
Go. Let's all bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, thank you for another day to do your work, to use our wisdom to do the right thing for the citizens of Georgia. Lord, please keep us healthy, keep us safe on the way home for all over Georgia tonight on our way back. And please look after us and our families. We do this work in your name. Amen.
Thanks, Chairman Jasper. Okay, we've got several that are going to be here and present for us today, and we'd ask that when you present, please tell us where it is on the list, and if you were told your bill was ready to be presented and it's not on the blue sheet but it's on the yellow sheet, that's okay too. So just tell us where it is, and that way it'll help us move faster, and brevity is your friend. Thank you. Senator, come tell us what you got there.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm presenting Senate Bill 410, which is the very last bill on page 4. This bill allows for a 6-month temporary license for veterinarians licensed in other states for the purpose of remedying staffing shortages in shelter medicine and nonprofit spay-neuter clinics across Georgia, including local government shelters. This is agreed on by the veterinary community, and I think it's going to go a long way towards helping with the backlog. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Don't see any questions. Thank you, ma'am. Representative Mann, go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman. I am presenting House Bill 1165. It is on page 3 in the middle of the page. This is a bill that came from the Criminal Justice Coordinating Council. Right now, there is $7.4 million that they can access, but they can't access it without this bill. What the bill does is it replaces the Office of the Governor's Family and Children Department to the Department of Behavioral Health because the Governor's Office of Children and Family is no longer in existence. And so in order to access the money, they need this change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Mann, don't see any questions. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I am presenting Senate Bill 144, which is on the, it's on the second page on the back. So, fourth page.
Okay.
So Senate Bill 144 is a department bill requested by the National Guard. It does two things. It removes commissioned officers off the annual report because we don't want their information to be online, because we don't want nefarious actors to go after them and their families. And the second thing it does is that it removes a requirement of having to print hard copies every single year of the rules and regulations, which can be cumbersome and expensive, and commanders have that information online where they can retrieve it very easily. Thank you.
Thank you. Don't see any questions. Thank you. Representative, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the Rules Committee. House Bill 1303 I bring to you. It can be found on modified open rule on the first page. And House Bill 1303 is a special license plates honoring the Shepherd Center, which is a specialty hospital, and this to celebrate their 50th anniversary of serving Georgians and other patients across the country.
Okay. No questions. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Chairman Petrie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the second page, about halfway down, I bring you today House Bill 957. Mr. Chairman, this bill relates to abandoned vessels. So the issue is that we have about 159 abandoned vessels on the Georgia coast today. 38 on Georgia Lakes, they're a public safety hazard to the waterway, and we have found it impossible almost to deal with this because we don't have the sanctions necessary to do so. This bill creates real penalties to be able to hold people accountable to stop this practice. By the way, many of these vessels are from out of state, and they float them down here and just float them off into the sunset. So we're hopeful to finally deal with this. Glad to answer any questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Don't see any questions.
Thank you, Chairman.
Representative Seabaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Here to present House Bill 451. It's on the yellow sheet. House Bill 451 establishes a requirement that all public entities in Georgia offer a mental health supplemental benefit program for first responders diagnosed with PTSD. 451 has been given a due pass by the Public Safety Committee twice and was sent to their Insurance Committee for further consideration, where it also received a due pass. The substitute bill you have includes revisions we made based on the recommendations of this committee. On line 76, the qualifications of the physician assistant and nurse practitioner to make trauma-related diagnosis was questioned, and it was recommended we tighten the list of qualified diagnosticians that can make a PTSD diagnosis. So we remove the physician assistant and nurse practitioner, and the qualified folks are a physician, psychologist, and psychiatrist. On line 102, we reduced the one lump sum cash benefit the responder can receive in the first 90 days from $10,000 to $3,000. And on line 176, we added language to ensure enforcement of the one-time lifetime benefit, even if an employee moves from one agency to another. And on line 192, we added language requiring the Commissioner of Insurance to provide an annual report to the House Insurance Committee and Senate Insurance and Labor Committee annually, so these bodies can monitor the activity of the benefit and we can adjust it as needed. Colleagues, that's House Bill 451. I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Come on up.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Representative Townsend, House Bill 1167. It's on the yellow sheet. This is a continuation of the Peach tax credit. We're raising it from $5 million to $10 million. Also raising the individual amounts. A person can donate, such as $1,000, $2,000 if you file jointly, $2,500 to $5,000, or if you're a corporation, from $10,000 to $25,000. Basically, this is to fund innovative projects by public schools. That's the key, or career academies. This is programs, public programs as well. And the safety net is you have to put in for it through the Georgia Public Policy Foundation for Education, and they'll let you know if that cap money is still available before it maxes out at $10 million. So this is supports public education.
Got a question for you. Quick part.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative, thank you for the bill. On lines 25 to 28, why are we striking out language that would give priority funding to the lowest 5% of schools?
At this time, you have many participants, such as career academies, who don't have that kind of designation. They take a mix of students. This kind of program is for all public education students.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir. No other questions. Representative McLean.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I bring you HB 1151. It's on the first page, which is the first bill. It's a special license plate for the Southern University alumni. There are roughly 3,000 alumni in the Georgia area and roughly 2,000 in the metro area, and I would look for your favorable consideration.
Thanks, sir. Don't see any questions.
Thank you.
Chairman Rhodes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. On the third page, fourth from the bottom, House Bill 1220. This is a very simple measure that puts private water companies under the purview of the PSC, not city, not county, but private water companies. This is to protect citizens from super high rates and excessive tap fees. Be glad to answer any questions.
Okay. Don't see any questions.
Thanks, sir.
Representative Mitchell, come on up.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I bring to your attention House Bill 1133, which is the fifth one down on the first page. This is truly a simple measure, as it is an urging resolution brought forth by our friends at the Georgia Kidney Foundation. I'm just a mere vessel in bringing it forward. It urges Congress to pass the Kidney Patient Act, and it's being co-sponsored. It's a bipartisan effort being led by Georgia's own Representative Buddy Carter, a Republican, and Representative Miller out of Illinois, another Republican. It's a great bill. What it essentially does is, with the proposed changes from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, they are changing the payment system such that for treatment of kidney failure, they're moving it to an ESRD payment system, which is an end-stage renal disease payment system, and oftentimes it is far too late for the average consumer. Ask for your favorable consideration. We'll stand for any questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions. Representative Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Bottom of the third page, House Bill 1237. This is a Department of Ag requested cleanup bill for the Citrus Commodity Commission. In the original bill, it defined a citrus producer as someone that owns or operates at least 5 acres of citrus-bearing fruit trees. Soon after the commission was formed, they determined that it'd be much easier to quantify acreage, tonnage or weight, rather than acreage. So what this bill does is simply remove the definition of a producer in the citrus title, and allows it to be spelled out in the marketing order. This exactly mirrors how Blueberry Commodity Commission is done, and it gives them more flexibility. Very simple bill, cleanup bill, and I ask for your favorable consideration.
Thank you, sir. Don't see any questions. Representative Gullett.
Thank you, members. House Bill 425. It's on the first page, the 6 from the bottom. It's LC 481226S. And this final version is really a product of SORB, the Sex Offender Registry Review Board, Judy Non-Civil, Representative Kennard, my local district attorney, myself coming together to what I think makes a good bill. While I won't say it's a SORB department bill, I believe it is an important bill to them and their work. And if you ask them, I think they would tell you the same. Section 1 of the bill addresses how close a level 1 sex offender can live or work to a church. Today, all sex offender levels must live or work at least 1,000 feet from a church, school, or playground. This section reduces that to level 1 offender can live or work at least 500 feet from a church that doesn't have a licensed daycare or licensed school. This is important so that the lowest level of sex offenders can find housing and employment here in the Bible Belt, but also continues to protect our children. It keeps the 1,000-foot limit for level 2 and level 3 offenders. Section 2 of the bill addresses how long someone is on the registry. For level 1s coming out of the state, it requires them to be first removed from the state that they got the sex offender status. And then once they complete 10 years after their completion of their sentence, they are eligible for removal. For the level 1s here in the state, it requires that they complete their status or complete their sentence, and then 5 years later, they're eligible for removal. So what this section does, it also removes the ability for the serious sex offenders to not be eligible for removal from the registry. That's what the bill does. Happy to answer any questions.
Great. Have a question. Representative Hughley has a question for you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and to Representative Gullett. Would you give me an example of a level 1 offender, because it gives me a little heartburn just hearing it. So maybe if I understood what a typical example of a level 1 that might help.
A level 1 offender, I can't tell you what they've done because I don't completely believe it matters to SORB what they've done. It's the likelihood of their reoffense. And so the likelihood that they are to reoffend is usually how they're tiered out. So if they're the least likely to reoffend are level 1s. The most likely to reoffend are level 3s, are called sexual dangerous predators, and level 2s in the middle.
So in my little mind, would level 1 include like high school kids that are within just outside the range or something of age?
No,
like the
no,
Romeo
no.
and
So
Juliet kind of junk, or what? You got to tell me what they've done.
So I don't necessarily know, but what I do know is like level 1. So High school is not, that's usually a misdemeanor, so if it's in with it's gotta be 48 months plus 1 day for it to be eligible. So if someone is about to turn 20 and someone is 15, that's a problem. If someone is 18 and someone's 15, that's not a problem. It's a misdemeanor. If there's anything, I think most of the time, that's not really prosecuted throughout the state, but it's not Romeo and Juliet stuff. These are felonies are the only way you get on the sex offender registry in Georgia.
Vice Chair Ballinger.
I believe I can clarify that. I actually sit on the SOAR board, the Sex Offender Registration Review Board. So we actually kind of go through those cases, and we're the ones who level those cases, whether it be level 1, level 2, or a sexually dangerous predator. The vast majority of those are like the representative was saying, basically, that these are like statutory rape cases where it was consensual. There was no force. There was no there was no force, weapon was not used, that sort of thing. So this was between two consenting adults, basically, and a lot of times the way that the Georgia statute reads, somebody can even, a 16-year-old can say that they're 18, and the fact that she presented herself as an 18-year-old is no defense. So she might have even presented herself as an 18-year-old, but still would be guilty of, a sexually dangerous crime and would be put on the sex offender registry.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Representative Reeves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. On page 3, House Bill 1240, this is the Georgia Uniform Commercial Code update. This is the first major update since 2001. This is State Bar of Georgia Business Law Committee requested bill. It is 115 pages, but it passed unanimously through House Judiciary, and I request your favorable consideration and do pass. Thank you.
Thank you. No questions. Representative Leverett.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. I was notified there are 4 bills which I'm to address, and I appreciate that opportunity, so I will get right to it with the chair's permission. House Resolution 1042 is at the top of the first page under Modified Open Rule. It's the next to the last item, House Resolution 1042. That would create a joint study committee on judicial system compensation. This is sort of a companion to the judicial compensation bill that the House passed out a week or 2 ago. This creates a committee that would study compensation of the other participants in that system: state-paid judges, district attorneys, public defenders. I'm sorry, I said state-paid, I meant county-paid, like juvenile court judges, probate court judges, magistrate court judges, DAs, and public defenders. So we're trying to study the current system we have and determine if changes need to be made to make that system more uniform throughout the state.
Okay, no questions.
Thank you. The next one is, where to go? House Bill 1218, which is on page 3, about 5th from the bottom. This is basically an amendment to a law that was passed by the General Assembly and signed by the governor last year. It was Leader Wade's bill. He had a situation in his district where an executor got appointed and absconded with all the money, and the people notified to get the will probated were heirs, but none of the heirs were beneficiaries. So the beneficiaries of the estate didn't even know they were beneficiaries until they learned the money had gone. So we set up a system where an executor is required to notify beneficiaries that he or she has been appointed. The fiduciary section and the probate judges suggested some changes to make the law a little more robust and effective, and so we're trying to make those changes with this bill.
Okay, no questions.
All right, 1247, which is just down to the very bottom, at the very bottom of page 3. I want to thank the pro tem for her leadership on this issue and for allowing me to carry this. She discovered this vehicle that exists in a number of states that's very consumer friendly and gives people an opportunity to designate a beneficiary to receive their residence upon their death. It sets out a very simple structure. It has a form in it for people to use, so it will allow folks a will alternative if they can't afford to spend the money on some estate planning. So it's the fiduciary section has reviewed it and approved it, and we believe this would really be a good consumer-friendly bill that would be very beneficial to all Georgians.
No questions.
All right. And the final one is just the very next page at the top. This is also related to the judicial compensation bill. It's House Bill 1251. Currently, the state auditor has to reimburse judges for travel expenses that they incur. At the time that was set up, the state auditor made the most sense to do that in 1940, but since then, this General Assembly has created the Council of Superior Court judges. It would be much more sensible for them to perform that function because the auditor doesn't necessarily know who the judges are and can't assess the legitimacy of the request. The council can. So currently, there's a lot of duplication. It's very inefficient. This would streamline that process, make it a lot more, just sort of commonsensical and also much more efficient.
Okay, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, members of the committee.
Chairman Smith.
Morning, Mr. Chairman. I bring today House Bill 827. That's going to be the fifth bill down on the second page of your blue sheet there. And just real quick, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, this would elevate the minimum and maximum penalties for theft of livestock. Also, at the request of the Department of Agriculture, it would give them the requisite authority to investigate and make the proper determinations, and as well as arrest power for offenses relating to the theft of livestock. That, in essence, Mr. Chairman, is the bill.
Okay, no questions.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman Perkle.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 3, 2, 4, 6, 7 down is 1126. I offer the opportunity for a do-over. So we've all said things that, in retrospect, I remember yesterday on the House floor, I might have said something about the pants that I wear when I'm working. If I had a do-over, probably not refer to them as breeches. I offer you in 1126 a do-over. This does away with school zone cameras. We did that several years ago, I think in 2018, we passed that bill, and it has been a hot mess since. It is inconsistent in where fines are coming out. It comes, so one of my favorite stories, I say favorite because it's not very funny, except it didn't happen to me. A guy's truck got a ticket as he was being towed through a school zone on a flatbed. We had a member in this body that I actually see in this room that I'm going to try and not make eye contact with. Got one when they were towing their boat through a school zone on the weekend to the lake. We have some that are running 24 hours a day with a light flashing, with it not flashing. We generate millions of dollars of additional taxes and fees for our citizens without a measurable increase in school safety. My bill actually is a school safety bill. We have too many false positives for the state to continue this. We were sold this bill using data that pedestrian deaths were out of control in the state of Georgia. And if you look back at the data, the actual numbers, and the first 6 months of 2019 before school zone cameras to the first 6 months of 2022 after school zone cameras, pedestrian fatalities increased 57.8%. I am not saying it is because of school zone cameras, but I will say that there could be an evidence that it did not cause a decrease. It did cause a massive increase in revenues. School safety is important. I think we should have law enforcement around our most vulnerable citizens, which is our kids. And I'd love to see them. They absolutely slow people down. Our kids are safer when a police officer is around. I think we should increase school safety by passing this bill.
Mr. Chairman, you've done such a good job of explaining that. My board is lighted all across here. Chairman,
I apologize.
Chairman
I've
Jaspers has
violated.
a question for you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, is it not true that you have, for the first time that we've all talked about school zone cameras, delved into the data and researched what the bill really does? And if you're successful getting this across the finish line, I'm going to name a road after you.
That sounds like a good
Thank you
deal.
for the question.
Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Is it not true that I appreciate opportunities for a do-over? However, I'm also concerned that this bill goes too far and potentially taking away a law enforcement tool?
I would contend this is not a law enforcement tool. So this is a civil penalty. To answer your question, so when the kids are coming up, and you had this little monitor you'd stick in the room and have one in the crib so you could listen to the kid cry and make sure you could come by. So that's what we've done. So we've taken law enforcement away, and we're going to send you a fine. But imagine that monitor has a time delay on it of 5 weeks. It wouldn't do much good as a means of protecting your kids.
One more quick question, if I may. Is it not true that I know that there's bipartisan support for this bill, but I think that it may be tossing the baby with the baby water?
With the bathwater, I understand the, I understand. But it did have bipartisan support. It passed out of the committee with unanimous support of both members of the party, so.
Good. Folks, we've got several more questions, and we don't want the speaker to get mad with us for not showing up on time in there. So if you got a burning question, let's ask it, but do it quickly, okay? Chairman Knight.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll be quick. Isn't it true that this General Assembly tried to do legislation last year to address this issue, which has been a problem? Yeah. I don't think that legislation made it across on the other side last year. But isn't it further true that this industry that is doing this surely is either deaf or not listening to what is going on here with the problems within this state, within these cameras? And isn't it further true that we continue to have flashing lights and tickets being given outside of school hours? Maybe the deafness of this industry is its own making in this bill. Thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you for the question, and I agree, is many bad actors.
Mr. Chairman, you got another bill?
I do have another bill. Thank you. It's 1127. It is going to be very quick. We've actually heard this bill last year, so I'm not going to go through it. It's the hemp bill. It's the same one I had last year. It's truth in labeling. We should have a QR code. We should have a warning label. You should know what you are consuming when you buy these things. It provides for the Department of Agriculture for enforcement. We have things on shelves that kids are buying. They think they're Skittles. And if you look closely on the package, it says, for adult use, 1 per day. And a kid, when they get candy, they never stop at 1. Kids are getting sick. They're going to the hospital. This is a consumer protection bill for this industry. It passed very strongly out of the House last year.
Thank you, sir. No questions. Representative Butner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I bring House Bill 1116. It's on page 5, and it's the 5th one down or next to last, whichever you want to find it by. And this is the historic tax credit bill. It has been very successful all across the state in both urban and rural areas. There are 2 programs contained within this law. It's the residential and the commercial, so it makes the bill a little confusing sometimes, but basically they both do great work. What we're doing with this bill is extending the sunset for the residential so that it will expire in 10 years, and we are expanding and resetting the commercial program to expire in 5 years. And we are also adjusting some of the caps for the commercial program, and we are raising the total commercial cap on the large projects because they are costing more and more. That's it in a nutshell, because I know we're in a rush, but I would entertain questions if there are any.
Did a good job explaining. No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your favorable consideration.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee. I've got House Bill 1028, and it's a Department of Public Health cleanup bill. It's on the bottom third of second page, 1028. And the caption mentions scoliosis, repealing the scoliosis screening in schools. That's actually been removed from the bill. But the bill just covers several things. It's Dr. Toomey asked for all these, and it does repeal a couple of things like a mass gathering requirement that the department would have to approve. That was put into place way back when, after Woodstock, and has never been implemented, never been used. They've never, and so we're just getting that off the books. We're repealing a pre-P pilot program because that pilot program has already happened and been successful. Changing the definition of sexually transmitted diseases. Tweak to how jail inspections happen. They will be confined to, public health will continue to do inspections of the food portion, the food service portion in jails. And so that's a pretty quick summary of the bill, and would ask for your favorable consideration.
Have a question for you. Whip Park.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Did the Department of Public Health mention any sort of replacement for the Georgia Diabetes Control Grant program that's being eliminated, along with the PrEP program that's being eliminated?
So what was explained to me is that this was never funded, and so it's never been implemented, and so it's not necessary at this time for them to
Thank you.
keep it in their program.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Do we have members who have requests? Just mash your button here. Representative Newton, Chairman Newton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the bottom of the second page, House Bill 1090, regarding the Fostering Success Act. This bill augments and improves a program that assists former foster children, especially once they reach the age of 18. They're out of foster care, but they haven't really made a good transition to adulthood. This helps them with both mentorship and expenses for life, and that we all know our kids need. Does three things: cleans up language allowing who can be assisted under this. It does, number two, it opens up the tax credit portion to where business entities that pay taxes other than income taxes can participate. That should allow it to get full funding of what's been done in the past. And finally, it puts guardrails around the spending. The basic effort is to make sure that it's not going for just overhead costs of an organization that may help foster kids, but it's going to new programs. Over 80% of the money needs to go to the new programs to actually benefit the child. So that's the bill, Mr. Chair. I do have one other.
If you have a question, raise your hand, because no questions on that. You have another?
I do. On the back page, on number 5, page 5, the third one down, 971. We discussed it the other day and recommitted it. The Firearm Safe Handling and Secure Storage Act. We did put some language on line 67 and 68 that just assure or doubly assure that no one in government or no one can make a list of the people receiving these tax credits, whether it's for safe handling instruction or for a secure storage device. It's a little bit of belt and suspenders according to the Department of Revenue, but we want to make it abundantly clear that the legislative intent is for this not to be used for any kind of a list or database. So I think hope that clears up the committee's concerns, and I look forward to favorable passage.
No questions, okay. Chairman Dempsey?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the bottom of page 1, fifth from the bottom, actually, HB 441, this will authorize, regulate, define teledentistry by licensed dentists in this state and through relationships with hygienists to particularly help some of our underserved populations where it is also hard to access dental care.
Okay. Have a question, Whip Park. Hit your button there, sir. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the chair lady, is it not true that I appreciate the bill, but I've also been receiving a lot of concerns about the substitute version in that it expands the scope of practice for dental assistants too much?
If you will look at the bill, the dental assistants will be regulated. It requires their education and training requirements established by the board. So they will be well equipped to go and help in this challenge we have in our state.
Thank you.
Thank you. No other questions. Chairman Martin.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. On the fourth page, third from the top and fifth from the top, I have two items. I have a constitutional amendment and then the enabling legislation. I'd address them both at the same time. The constitutional amendment is necessary to move the Georgia Tax Tribunal from the executive branch to the judicial branch, and it will be called the Georgia Tax Court. Nothing's changing in the bill is the length it is because of the cross references. The idea for doing this, or the reason for doing this, is the first level of appeal from an executive branch court is to the Superior Court in the county in which the court sits. that would be Fulton County here. They're very busy in Fulton County Court, and also in general, regardless of the individual sitting on the bench, the Superior Court is a trial court, not an appellate court. So this would just let them go straight to the appellate court. If there are any questions, I would take them.
Don't see any questions. Thank you. Chairman Stevens.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Page 4, second one down. All this bill does is provide
What's the number?
I'm sorry, 1264.
Okay.
Second one down. The bill provides for monitoring and rehabilitation of nurses, for impaired nurses, as we do for doctors, pharmacists, and dentists today.
Okay, no questions. Thank you. Chairman Carson, do you have a?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also on page 1, near the bottom, House Bill 41. All this does is require that our state pension plans, TRS and ERS most notably, must operate in the financial interest and carry out a fiduciary duty for the beneficiaries. What this basically does is codify the board rules that were adopted by TRS and ERS in September of 2022. That's it.
Okay, don't see any questions. Representative Jaspers has one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chairman Jasper, excuse me.
I bring House Bill 910. It's a bill to require the age verification before the use of a porn site. Protects the identity of individuals, with the cause of action for exposure in other states has significantly reduced porn availability.
Don't see any questions. Thank you. You got another one too?
No.
Okay. Representative Powell, or Chairman Powell, do you have?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 820. Very simple bill. Back in the early 90s when they did the motor vehicle emission standards for the attainment zones, they set a price parameters that could be charged for these, and I believe it was from $10 to $25. It's been 30-something years, and these folks have been asking if we would consider raising it from $10 to $35.
Okay. Don't see any questions. Thank you. Is that everybody on the committee? Okay. Let's do a little housekeeping here. I'm going to ask for a motion to recommit House Bill 1224 back to the Higher Education Committee. Move and second. Any opposition? Okay, that's done. All right. Now, what we're going to do is set a calendar for Monday. Okay. Under modified structure, House Bill 825. Is there a move? Move in several seconds. Any opposition? Okay, it's on. House Bill 1165. Move in second. Any opposition? House Bill 1172. Any objections? It's on. House Bill, you objected? Okay. All those in favor of putting 1172 on, raise your hand. All opposed? It's on. House Bill 1240. I will move in a second. Any opposition? It's on. Okay. Representative Ballinger. Recognized for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that pursuant to Rule 33.3 that we limit debate on all matters placed on the rules calendar to 1 hour, time to be allocated at the discretion of the chair.
We've heard the motion. Is there a second? Second. Any opposition? There is objection. All those in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? It passes. Okay. Just so we make sure we understand, Monday, House Bill 825, House Bill 1165, House Bill 1172, House Bill 1240. That's it. We are adjourned. Thank you.